Hello, everyone. Today, our guest on Friday Takeaway podcast is James Walker, the CEO of ultrafast brochure Buyk, which launched in the United States in mid-2021 and is already in New York, Boston, and Chicago. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, James. You have a very immense experience in hospitality. That's unquestionable, right? And in many other business areas. If you could please share a little bit about yourself, and what's the most interesting, I think, is how did you decide to start from the ground up with the startup, with something completely new, building completely new thing, and what is so exciting for you in it? Why did you make this choice?
Great. Well, thank you. Thanks for including me this morning. And you just gave me a lot to unpack. So let me try to work through that. So first of all, Buyk is based here in New York City. I'm here in Manhattan, Hudson Yards, which is where our corporate office is. Currently, Buyk is operating in New York City as well as Chicago. You mentioned Boston. We'll be launching Boston, Washington, D.C., Miami, and Los Angeles in the weeks to come. Those are some of kind of the immediate plans there. So Boston is, we can see it already.
All right.
I think at least virtually, we're excited about entering that market as well as the others I mentioned. You said immense background, which is the nicest way anybody has ever said you're an old guy. I think.
Oh, come on. That's not what I said.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
So, very deep. Like, you have a lot of expertise.
There, fair enough. So, but I think you bring up a good point. So really, if you look at my career, it has been, you could certainly use the word hospitality, and that would be correct. I would use the word, I'm really passionate about a number of things. I'm passionate about customer experience. I idolize companies like Apple, like Tiffany's, like Chick-fil-A that just do a phenomenal job at crafting an amazing customer experience. So I'm very focused on customer experience. The next thing, and I think they work hand in hand, is I'm very passionate about employee experience. And again, I love organizations that are passionate about their people. I don't know how you can have great customer experience without having great employee experience.
Absolutely.
So that's another thing I'm passionate about. And then kind of the third pillar is really food. I'm passionate about food, food and beverage and that whole experience. It is very much an art form. It's an art form that you can experience with all of your senses, and you have to experience to live, right? So if you say I'm going to stop eating, that doesn't last too long. So my career has really been based on those three things. Working on crafting a fantastic customer experience, doing so by curating and building a team that's passionate about doing that, and then the backdrop of food. So when you look at that career and those things that I really am very passionate about, along comes ultrafast grocery. Now, ultrafast grocery is absolutely about customer experience. It has to be executed because at Buyk, we own the last mile. It has to be executed, by a
Absolutely.
team of passionate professionals. And absolutely, food is, let's not lose sight of that. Because I think in ultrafast, there's a lot of conversations about the blocking and tackling of the last mile or the logistics. And certainly those are things that need to be contemplated. But we're delivering food, whether it's hot food or whether it's packaged food. We're still delivering food. So the move from the restaurant industry to ultrafast grocery, I think, allowed me to stay within those three areas that I'm very passionate about.
No doubt. No doubt.
Specific to Buyk, for maybe the past 4 to 5 years in the restaurant industry, I've been very focused on executing, let's call it hyper convenience, doing everything that I could within the brands that I had worked with, Nathan's Famous, and before that, a small sandwich shop called Subway, working to find ways to increase the accessibility of those brands. How could we get that, the food that people were passionate about to people easier, whether that was through a network of dark kitchens, as we did it very effectively at Nathan's Famous, setting up the delivery network at Subway. So, kind of this background to me
is
a
the
really
natural step, right? It's just the natural step for you, and it's an opportunity not just to lead the big system, but build this big system. Is it a new ambition, a new stage?
It is. So, I think you see that we're enough in my wheelhouse, and the things that I get up in the morning and want to do and want to be passionate about is very aligned with ultra-fast grocery. Now, along comes Buyk. So Buyk is it's a super unique company and created a really unique opportunity for me. So I mentioned that I idolize, the service, and I would say the culture in companies like Chick-fil-A. I mean, these guys, the Cathys and the leadership team, they just do a phenomenal job at creating an environment that's great for employees and customers, and profitability follows along with that. For the past 25 years, I've been brought in primarily by private equity companies, but others, to accelerate, to change the direction, the trajectory, or the cadence of a brand. And trying to change an existing culture can be very difficult. It can be an almost undaunting task, even if the culture really needs to be changed. So along comes Buyk. So here's a company that is starting. It's starting fresh and new. It's in an exciting category. There's an opportunity for me to help really affect and build the culture here, which I'm super excited about. But there's more that's unique about the opportunity. So it's a startup, but it's a startup founded by two gentlemen who, in effect, created the category. So Rodion and Slava, these guys have a track record of success. They have scaled really the only profitable enterprise within ultrafast. So there's this fantastic set of systems and procedures and institutional knowledge that I'm gifted. I don't know how else to say it. It's a gift from our founders. So I get all of the fun of, kind of the sports car that is a startup like Buyk, but I have these gentlemen that are providing, really a master class in how to execute this business model. So that was a long answer, but yeah.
Looks like we're going to have a very exciting call, a very exciting podcast episode today. I'm super excited. Thank you very much again for finding time. And I'm super keen on diving deep into all of the questions and all of the details of the industry of Buyk. We're going to talk about some numbers today, right? And about some key trends and key insights in the industry. I wanted to start with one of the most noisy topics this and the past week, and is the New York City and how much of a battlefield it has become. And also, it has been a tough nut to crack, right? Basically, we saw an invasion in 2021 of the Gorillas and Joker and Buyk. Regional Mall was already there, 1520 and Getir as well. And then DoorDash also announcing them getting on the market. And then GoPuff finally entered the New York. So it was basically like all the forces come together to teach the New Yorkers the convenience, right? But it also has been a very big challenge for many companies. We saw 1520 already going out of business. And recently there has been quite a lot of information about Joker and Fridge No More and the possibilities of them leaving the market. Could you please share the story behind Buyk entering New York? Why do you think it can crack it? And what do you write maybe that others don't do?
Sure. Wow. Again, that's a target-rich question for me. I've certainly seen comments in the media here in the U.S. Talking about, why New York? New York is so difficult. And it reminds me, there's a famous American president whose initials are JFK, who said, in part, we don't do these things because they're easy. We do these things because they're hard. So I think New York is a great testing ground. It's a great opportunity because there's the ability to scale here. So it's a larger market. The population allows for expansion within the boroughs. So within a given geography, you can scale your business. But when I think of, let's call it the headwinds or the difficulties of New York, maybe I see it a little differently. I think each city within the US presents its own series of challenges, whether they're municipal, whether they're building codes, whether they're infrastructure, topography, they all have their own challenges. When I think of challenges for ultra-fast grocery, I'm less focused on the challenges of New York City or the challenges of Manhattan versus Brooklyn. A lot of the challenges that I think overall the industry is facing right now have maybe more to do with the point in time that we are. So, coming out of COVID, there's a certainly restricted labor supply, more certainly than in recent memory. There's just less workforce available. Infrastructure concerns, fuel prices are high, manufacturers are oversubscribed, and distribution
challenges as a heritage from the COVID as well, right?
Yeah. So, I think, absolutely New York. I get why people say, why New York? I don't know that New York presents any specifically more difficult challenges than a market like Boston or a market like Chicago. And it does certainly offer more opportunity just because of its size. So I think difficulties today that all of the ultra fast players need to work around are probably more about the point in time in the U.S. Now you talk about, I think you used the word invasion. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes. I mean, that was just like a massive movement of ultra fast grocery just sweeping the market. Like it felt like New York is going to fall for sure, not just because of the number of people just going there and flowing the money on the market. I mean, it cannot just not fly.
Sure. So, it's interesting, being in ultra fast grocery, right? So I'm not sitting outside looking at this. I'm literally, here in our offices
definitely
at Hudson Yards.
The battlefield.
But it doesn't feel like that. That's kind of my point is, I'll talk to individuals who are outside of the industry, but they're watching it intently because I think this is really interesting.
Oh yeah.
And we can talk more about this. I think ultra fast is an evolution, not a revolution, and we should talk about what that means. But it doesn't feel, sitting here today in Manhattan, like this is a battlefield. It seems more like an exciting point in time. I'm not focused on let's call it our category contemporaries. I'm avoiding the word competitor because I see right now the opportunity for ultra fast, the number of Americans who will utilize a ultra fast grocery service, whether it's Buyk or one of our contemporaries. That number is so large that if you aggregate all of the ultra fast players, there is just a massive untapped market. we are underserving the potential customers just here in New York City. So if you take all of those players, I couldn't even count that fast. There's a lot of players here. I still believe that New York City itself is underserved from an ultra-fast grocery standpoint. So these players are helping each other in a way that kind of that rising tide lifts all boats. We're educating customers in New York City and then in Chicago and Boston and around the US that there's this evolution in grocery delivery where, you know, a 90-minute delivery is no longer considered convenient. Now you can have delivery in 15 minutes. You know, that's fantastic. And I think these contemporaries in the space are helping to educate consumers.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you, and the numbers talk for themselves. I mean, the $1 trillion market, and only 10% of it is e-grocery, and only 24% of these 100 billion is actually delivery, which is usually same day, next day, 2-hour delivery and whatnot, and only like the small pieces of these, I don't even think there are a couple percent in this whole pie is ultra fast grocery. Definitely agree with you that the market is untapped, that you're definitely helping each other. And I understand, and it's very interesting that you do not see New York as a specific problem, right? It's a very interesting thing. But just to close the topic of New York, the market is still challenging in point of view of many players, and the history shows it. And experts, for example, Britton Ladd, who is writing, I think, very good articles and comments about the industry, mentioned it many times that it is a very challenging market. He, of course, always says that Buyk can handle it, but others should be careful about it. This is also something interesting to understand. Why is it a challenge for others, not for you? But the main thing is the labor is expensive, rent is expensive, the community is strong in terms of bodegas and in terms of the infrastructure. The neighborhood's already quite served with the proposition. You can see everything on the street every 10 feet, right? There will be a new store, a new bodega, or anything. And there are also comments from one of the New Yorkers recently that some of the neighborhoods resent the services because they are kind of polluting the neighborhoods, and they are creating extra noise with the bikes, with the couriers, with dark stores that don't always look pretty. Like in the beginning, when companies didn't know how to do it, there were a lot of mistakes done, right? And we also see the same pattern in Amsterdam, right? They are banning dark stores in the areas of Amsterdam, right? So could you please help me solve this puzzle? Why do some people say that New York is so hard to crack and so challenging for many players?
So I'm laughing a little bit because, you know, you're mentioning that there's individuals here in New York who are like, you know, we don't like the noise, and I'm just trying to reconcile that. So I'm sitting in Hudson Yards. I've got noise reduction headsets on, as you can see. I'm inside of a glass soundproof office with the door closed, outside with more doors closed, and I can still hear the sirens, the trucks, and the life that is New York City. So if you're asking me to describe why someone in New York City might say, you know, those electric bicycles, they're really creating a lot of ruckus, that's not feedback I've heard. I'm a really accessible individual. People can find me on Twitter or on Instagram or on LinkedIn. My email is not going to be hard to figure out. I love to talk to customers and people here in New York or Chicago about their experiences with Buyk. That's not what I hear. I do not hear that there's resistance to this service. I get comments from individuals who say, I'm shut in. I have health issues. I'm not able to leave my home, or I have childcare issues, and you're providing a service that's so important to my life. So those are the comments that I hear. Specific to why Buyk is successful in New York, and I believe, we're young, but I think we can say that we're successful here. Is we really pledge to be hyper local in our hiring activities, in our behavior. So we want to be part of the landscape that is New York City. I'm here in New York, typically 5 days a week. I've got a house in Connecticut about an hour away, and I'll go out there for the weekends. But I'm in New York. We're using the restaurants in New York as a team. We're hiring local. We're finding local vendors and manufacturing partners. You may have read that we've got an exclusive arrangement with Pat LaFrida.
Yes,
Pat LaFrida,
that is huge.
You don't get much more New York than that. And we're partnering with other manufacturers, vendors, purveyors within New York. So we practice hyper locality and locally focused business. So we're part of New York. And I think that we'll view each market in that way. What can we do to be part of the landscape in Chicago? What does that do to our assortment? What opportunities does that create? How do we really be part of that community? And I think that's a fair amount of our success here. The other thing I would mention, Buyk, where are we focused? We're focused on the United States of America. That is where Buyk is focused solely. And some of our contemporaries have much broader geographic areas that they're executing and that they're focused on. Our focus is on executing here within the United States. We're very focused as an American company based in the United States, based in New York, and making sure that we understand the nuances and the opportunities as well as the challenges on a city by city basis. And I think that really helps us ultimately succeed in all of these cities. We don't look at the United States and say, the United States is the same, every city is the same. Absolutely not. Every city presents its own opportunities, its own challenges, and I think we're well positioned to take advantage of those.
This is, I think, I think it's a great answer, because what I heard is that the main key differentiator and advantage of yours is that you're so focused on one market and one customer as of an American, and your motto of let's give the time back to Americans and being hyper local in the DNA is the main differentiator. Because when others are delivering groceries in 15 minutes and doing it worldwide, spreading the service, which I believe is a great thing to do, you are thinking about what actually Slava has always said, becoming a fossil for the Americans, right? Something that you do not even have to think about, and it's hyper local, tailored to you. Do you work deeply with the neighborhoods within the cities? Let's just dive deeper into this. Like, let's dive deep into the American market. You say it's not the revolution, it's the evolution. Could you please explain it more? And how do you work with the locals, with the cities separately and the neighborhoods separately? And where do you see this evolution? Where do you bring it?
Sure. So, the first thing I'll kind of expand on a little bit is, those, I guess the only way to say it is the competitive advantages that Buyk has. And I want to clarify. So our founders have a mission to give back time. By the way, you're talking to a guy that's wearing 2 watches. So, time, and I think you mentioned it earlier today.
Moscow and New York?
Right? Well, Moscow, New York, and LA, and everywhere else. So our founder's mission of giving back time, that's a really sincere mission. And if you unpack that, if you think about that for a minute, what are you going to do with that time? So you can spend time with your family, you can spend time trying to make yourself better, to reading, to working on your health, your fitness, all of those types of things. So if I can gain 15 minutes a day, that's a really, really big deal for me. You're talking to a guy who has meetings overlapping, and it's a big deal. So I think that's a very sincere and heartfelt mission of giving back time. I think within ultrafast, the competitive advantages we have, and I want to clarify that, because that sounds like I'm saying, this is Buyk against these other players. We're very focused on executing our model to the fullest extent of our founder's vision. But the things I think are unique, so maybe it's more the unique points, are first and foremost our founders. The fact that we have two individuals who have scaled an ultra-fast grocery and have done so with enterprise level, profitability. That's a really big deal. It allows me to move fast. It allows me to avoid mistakes that others may make because they don't have that knowledge and that experience that our founders have. So the first, I think, advantage we have are the founders themselves. The next is the technology. So while we started, I think you used the term mid 2021, that's great. But that technology is already mature. So we inherited from our founders a best-in-class technology solution, a technology solution that provides really a fantastic customer experience, but also advantages in courier efficiency as well as supply chain efficiencies. And I know we're going to talk about profitability.
We definitely are.
We talk about profitability at Buyk every single day. In every conversation, we're very focused on the profitability of our model, of our execution, of our transactions. So that technology really helps from a profitability standpoint. The third area, and there's four, is the assortment. And whether it's the hyper local focus, so the fact that we've got Pat LaFrieda products here in New York, and in effect, Pat LaFrieda is kind of our in-app meat store. Other famous brand names here in New York, our private label that we launched before anyone else really in the segment at a very high quality level. Assortment is the third advantage we have. And the last, I think, is really, the fact that we are focused, that we're focused on the US with a US team. And, the opportunity around the world is huge. It's great. I probably have somebody reach out to me on a daily basis saying, can we talk about Sao Paulo? Can we talk about Seoul? Where are you going next? And I said, we're going to Boston next. We're focused on the US. So I think that focus is really important. So those, I wanted to just kind of unpack the advantages.
Right.
And then,
right.
You had talked about, I think the importance of cities. So, New York, where we've started, where our offices are. I'm on the board of directors for the New York Hospitality Alliance. I'm a fellow member for the Culinary Institute in America, also based in New York. We want to be part of the cities that we do business in. We want to provide employment. We want to make sure that we are a good corporate citizen of these markets and provide not only the service that gives back time to the people who live in those cities, but economic opportunity for residents, for vendors, and for purveyors alike. So it's really important to us to understand, how we can be part of each of these communities.
Right. This is a very interesting point. Let's look into the communities from the perspective of assortment, right? Because the idea of giving time, convenience, and technology, it's mostly for everyone. And assortment, I think, is one of the key factors for retail. And one of the first moves that Buyk does is coming in with its own private label, something that Slava and Rodion were doing with Samoka, and I think they did a great job there. I tried their products, and you basically execute it right away so fast. why is the assortment and why is private label so important for ultra-fast grocers?
So, assortment and private label kind of, and I would say also, let's say, exclusive partnership. So I would put our relationship with Pat LaFrida, it's kind of a bookend to that private label. So you've got private label to the left, you've got
Right.
exclusive relationships like Pat LaFrida, and there are others that will be announced. And in between, you have the rest of the assortment. It's incredibly important because let's not lose sight of the fact that we're providing food, we're providing a customer experience. That's the business we're in. So the assortment and the private label, not only does that help us from a margin standpoint, so the transactional level economics get better, there's more margin in private label.
Can you give an
But
example? Maybe you can give an example in some numbers, like how much margin can you really gain on the private label? Maybe not,
so
like,
I
not
think
from the beginning, but in the long
Yeah,
term.
so I think from an industry standpoint, so let's we're still young, but from an industry standpoint, it's not unusual for private label to have 10 points or more in margin, and that's really significant.
Right.
So within private label at Buyk, the products that we've launched and you can find on our app today, we're very focused on having this continuity of quality. So if you experienced the first 13 private label items that came out back in December, way back in December, they were artisan breads, hearth-baked breads, and pastries at an absolute very high quality level. And customers, they tried them, they loved them. We saw the prior to private label versus post private label launch double for these items. So double the number of people enjoying them because they saw it's a Buyk item. I don't know what that is. I'll give it a try. They loved it. And the repurchase was very strong and remains so today.
Wow.
What people experienced was a really high quality product. So now we get into January, we launch a line of smoked salmon. It is, again, artisan premium product. So now what we're doing is we're educating people that Buyk basically means quality. So if you go to your app in the upper left-hand corner, there's an icon that says Buy Buyk. And in there, you can find our private label items. As people experience these items, they begin to understand and associate that Buy Buyk means high quality product at a competitive price. Yes, it helps us from a margin standpoint, but additionally, it helps build loyalty and stickiness within the customer base. So these are really important pieces of our model.
Wow, this is awesome. And how is what are the plans for the assortment and for private label? How deeply do you want to go into this? And how much of the assortment, like in terms of the percentage, like is it going to be like 10% private label and 10% the partnerships, and the rest are going to be the CPGs that are popular brands? Or what is the ratio that you guys are aiming to get?
So I would say kind of in round numbers, and this will be different on a market by market basis. And I think we could spend a long time just talking on private label, because I think private label or white label or whatever terminology you want to use in the US is maturing to the level that if I go to Walmart, I understand that their private label means value. And by value, I mean it's lower price.
Right.
If I go to Costco, that's not how I view Costco's private label. I view Costco's private label as premium.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even within the US today, within a curated, strategic private label program, you can have kind of differentiated tiers. Now, the initial launch plan for Buyk is really that premium level, best in class products at a competitive price. But there will be time for us to begin to add things like, bottled water, which is more. That's not a stunt. I just need some water. there will be an opportunity for us to add more value-oriented products. So overall, what does mature look like? I would say somewhere in the 40% range, that 40% of our assortment would fall into that private label category. Some of them at a premium level, some of them at a more cost affordable or value-based. The next category is, I think, those exclusive relationships we have, like our friend Pat LaFrida, and I think that could be another 10%. So that gets you to 50% that falls into that get it only at Buyk type of item. And I think there's really exciting things that we're going to be sharing in the weeks and very few months to come that are going to fit within that 50%. Now, outside of that 50% is, our procurement team likes to use the terminology, we're going to major in the majors. And I like the alliteration of that. And it's easy enough that even I can understand it. We're going to carry Red Bull, we're going to carry Diet Coke, we're going to carry Heinz ketchup, those products that people need in their everyday life. Our mission is giving back time to America. And that's an awesome mission. And our one of our founders, Slava, who you mentioned, who I know you're a fan of, as am I, and I think I talked to him at 4:30 this morning. Slava says, this is kind of getting to the evolution versus revolution. This is as easy as turning on a faucet in your house. So you go from grocery shopping in America being a very planned situation. So if I'm going to drive to the grocery store, that needs to be a planned occasion. The revolution came a number of years ago when companies started saying, we can deliver groceries. So I remember living in Boston many years ago, and I think it was Stop and Shop said, we're going to deliver groceries and you're going to order through the internet. And I don't even think an app was available. You got on your desktop computer and you could have groceries brought to you. That was revolution. And it had the resistance at that point in time where people are like, are you crazy? How am I going to order ice cream and you're going to bring it to my house? And I like
it's going to be melted and you're going to give me only the worst products and something that you cannot sell.
I want to pick my carrots. I like the small carrots or the big carrots. And
I want to talk to Jennifer. I want to talk to Jennifer. Who am I going to talk to if I'm not doing groceries?
Yeah, the meat man. All of these things. So I think revolutionary changes. You have kind of this societal pushback, right? Who's going to buy books on the internet? Amazon. Who came up with this name? This guy's sitting in a garage. He's crazy. So the revolution was, I think, going from traditional offline grocery that people were used to and moving to a delivery mechanism. The evolution of that, and I think it's a natural evolution, is to make it more convenient and take that a step further where that traditional grocery delivery is still a planned occasion. If I place an order through the grocery services that I have available to me in Connecticut, it could take 90 minutes or 2 hours for that delivery to arrive. So that's got to be a planned occasion. I have to know that these groceries are going to arrive, that I'm going to get my a la mode ice cream, which is my ice cream of choice. I'm going to get my Red Bull. I don't know why Red Bull doesn't call me. I mention them all the time, right? I'm going to get
Red Bull. Red Bull, call us. I'm also interested.
Right.
I love Red Bull.
Come on, guys. Right. Yeah. But it's a planned occasion. The other thing I'm going to mention here, and this is part of the evolution to the model that our founders have created in Buyk, is the controlled inventory. So if I use the grocery delivery services available where I live in Connecticut, I have a marketplace, I have a subcontractor, and I have a grocer. So all of those players aggregate friction within the consumer experience, and they also aggregate cost. So I'm getting a more expensive delivery, a slower delivery, and because they're 1 step or 2 steps away from the inventory, I have to be near my phone to see, oh, they're out of sugar-free 12-ounce Red Bull. I have to say it's okay to get the 16-ounce Red Bull. Where when you look at the model that Buyk has, and this is to me the natural evolution, the perfection of the model, if you will, We control the inventory. So if the app says you can get, all right, I'll be honest, it's a 20-ounce Red Bull. When I get my 20-ounce sugar-free Red Bull and it has it on the app, it's accurate because we control the inventory, and the inventory is real time on the app. And because we own the inventory and we own the last mile, we own all pieces of this, from the marketplace, the virtual storefront, to the inventory, the actual store, if you will, to the last mile. We own all three pieces, so you don't aggregate expense or charges. That helps with the economic model. We don't have three hands, each trying to take a piece. You have a better customer experience, and you go from, even in traditional grocery delivery, a planned experience that could take up to 2 hours, to an experience that's as easy as turning on the faucet in your home. So if I'm hungry for Pat LaFrida strip steaks, I can place an order at 5 p.m. I eat early. I can place an order at 5 p.m. I can have my Pat LaFrida, New York strips or ribeyes at 5:15. Pat shows me how to cook them online. And at 5:30, I'm eating a gourmet meal that I didn't even think to have until 5 o'clock. Where if you think of other models, you've got to decide way in advance what you're going to be hungry for. So I think this is better for America, better, healthier. I think it's better from a culinary standpoint. I think I might have told you some time ago, I went to culinary school in France back in the 90s. And I know I'm dating myself here. And being an American, I get to Paris, I check in at my apartment, and as an American growing up, in South Florida, I'm going to go to the grocery store, and I'm thinking, well, I better buy 5 days worth of groceries. And this guy in this grocery store in the Bastille area, he's looking at me like, what are you doing, crazy American? You have a big family. I'm like, no, it's just me. And he's like, well, why are you buying 10 apples? I said, well, I eat 2 apples a day. He said, buy 2 apples. Don't buy 10 apples, buy 2 apples. Come back tomorrow, get a better apple tomorrow. Buyk allows you to do that. You don't have to buy 3 days or 5 days or even 2 days worth of groceries. You can buy what you need, what you crave, when you crave it, and have that delivered. So less waste, healthier, fresher, better food. This is the evolution of grocery shopping in America, brought to you by our founders, Slava and Royden.
And this is how the consumption is going to look like in the coming decades and years. I get it here right now. It's never been easier to spend money on the internet. What is the ratio of products, of the SKUs that you're offering in this or that area? How can the assortment can be different within New York, right? Within two areas.
That technology, through machine learning and predictive analytics, it begins to learn about James Walker. So, James Walker, he likes Pat LaFrida meats. This predictive analytics allows me to market more efficiently, to market more efficaciously, and to build greater loyalty in my customer base. Those assortments are going to radically change even within one borough. So really the answer is, I can't verbalize in any way that makes sense because it is too complex. And what allows Buyk to be successful at this is that software that learns the trends on a micro basis, on a micro fulfillment basis, on a time of year basis, on a time of day basis,